Hello and welcome to another episode of the tier list. Today we've got the 100 square inch racket tier list. It's one of the most competitive markets in tennis, so it's only right to rank them in order. We've got performance on the docket as one of the most important aspects, and since you guys didn't like that I included endorsements last time, we are not going to talk about endorsements. So first up, let's jump right into it. We've got the Bablot Pure Arrow, mislabeled by me as Pure Drive because I'm an idiot, but this is the yellow banana, endorsed most importantly by Rafael Nadal, 21-time Grand Slam champion, one of my personal heroes both on the court and off the court. He's a great guy, and since endorsements mean nothing, S tier. It's actually a good racket, I think. I like the older Arrow Pro drives personally because they have denser string patterns, but the Pure Arrow is just, you can't argue. It's one of the most important tennis rackets ever made. In sales, it's huge. It's shocking how, despite having nearly identical specs, that Bablot was able to really create a distinct identity for the Pure Arrow over the Pure Drive, and that's something that I think is really respectable. Great racket all around, easy to recommend to a lot of different players, though I'd like to see them kind of return to something more old school, or even revisit an actual like Rafael Nadal edition where it was sold weighted to his specs. Of course, we're never going to get that, but whatever. Anyway, next up we've got the Clash 100. This is the 3.5 racket. My hot take is that the Clash 100 is actually the most important racket release that we've seen since either the Blade or the Pure Arrow Pro Drive came out. It's a completely new take on the 100 square inch racket, extremely unique, and offered something new, both in terms of its marketing and like what it actually offers on the court. So both the RF97, the Pure Arrow, and even the Djokovic Speed rackets, they all come with them really heavy player endorsements, and that's one of the things that really sells a lot of rackets. That is not the case for the Clash 100, and yet it is one of Wilson's best-selling models. It was marketed for the everyday person. They had a great social media campaign, and I think they really released something extremely unique to the market. You're getting shocking levels of stability considering how soft the flex is, and this was one of the first rackets that we saw as part of this movement away from the stiff Bablot designed frames, right? Because everyone suddenly wanted a lot more power and a lot more forgiveness through this high stiffness with the Pure Drive, but also lighter weight and the Pure Arrow and stuff like that, and it was causing arm problems. Head made some really horrible rackets trying to copy that stiff and light formula. It was hurting people, and the Clash was the solution. And since then, we've really seen all these manufacturers make comfort a much bigger priority, and to me, the fact that it doesn't really have any pro endorsements, yet it can sell so well and has such a unique identity, makes it S tier for me. The Clash 100 is a really cool racket, and I think you have to respect it. The Clash Pro, on the other hand, is dumb. I like that they added a 20th cross to it, so it's a little bit more control oriented, helping it separate itself from the standard Clash. But I don't see a huge market for it, to be honest. But I guess like there are some. No, I take that back. It's kind of cool. It can't be better than B tier though. Like, it's pretty average. Is it below average? But it's still so unique. Let me know in the comments. Do you think the Clash Pro is B tier or C tier? I'm having a hard Okay, let's leave it B tier because I like that they tightened up the string bed. That's something a lot of us, I think, really wanted to see out of the 98. The Clash Pro is a little bit more control-oriented feel, so I like that they listen to the customers. So, okay, B tier. Extreme MP. Historically, I've really not liked the Extreme MP. I did hit extensively with the newer one, not because I wanted to switch to it, but because I made a review on it for Courtside Sports. It isn't extreme, like it does feel like my tour in a way, but all the magic of the tour is completely gone with the MP. I don't think it's quite D tier, but it's certainly no better than C tier. I don't see why you would buy an Extreme MP over a Pure Arrow. They have the same super open string patterns, really high twist weight, healthy swing weight, but the feel is a lot worse. Like, yeah, maybe it's a bit more connected, but the string bed is really high pitched, which I don't like. The endorsements are like not that cool. Berrettini, I guess, is kind of cool. Like, I want the Hugo Boss clothing, but I don't want the extreme MP because Berrettini has an extreme paint job. I want the extreme tour, so we're just not even caring about that. C tier, yeah. Okay, Pure Drive. The Pure Arrow wouldn't exist without the Pure Drive, therefore the Pure Drive has to be S tier. It's one of the most important rackets of all time. It was one of the first rackets that said, yo, you can be a really good player, but you don't have to use such a heavy racket with such a small head size. This defined the modern player's racket, in my opinion. Fabio Fognini uses it, enough said. Pure Drive Plus. This is also S tier because extra long is even more in the Pure Drive spirit. It's like Andy Roddick used an extra long Pure Drive, which makes that cool as well. And Andy Roddick is a cool guy. When you hit the Pure Drive and then you hit the Pure Drive Plus, you go, oh, so I can have even more power with the Plus? That is something that's shocking and awesome, and I just love it. It makes it feel like you're cheating on the tennis court because you got all this extra reach and great power. It's really cool. Okay, Instinct MP. This one seems to be on its way out. It did get an update for 2022, though I think it was just paint. If you notice, the prices on the Instinct MP are dropping rapidly. I assume they're only being made because of economies of scale. Like, they want to make sure they get the return on their investment from the mold. I like the play by head in terms of making them cheaper because honestly they are terrible rackets. The Instinct line has been trash for years. Like, what was the last good Instinct? The gold one? Was that like a liquid metal? Like, this thing should have been dead years ago, and I can't believe it's still around today. Okay, Ultra 100. Underrated, if you ask me. I feel like Wilson doesn't have like a ton of credibility in their endorsements because, like, we all know their players are either using blades, Steam 100s, or like H22s, especially now that Monfils isn't there using an H19. Like, the amount of pro stock lies that Wilson spits is as bad as any company. To my knowledge, there's no one using the newest Ultra 100. I actually think it was a good update. I really hated the CV. I thought it was brassy and crap. This one has a little bit more of a solid feel. Super, super stable, and the string pattern was shockingly control-oriented. This racket can stand up in stock form to a really seriously heavy ball. So, like, I don't think it's A tier, but it's B. Yeah, it's B tier, I think. So Wilson just dominating the B tier here. Next up, we've got the Ezone 100. I did just test this racket out. I'll put a link in the description, and I really liked it. It was a very good racket, one of my top choices, if not my top choice in this kind of tweener 100 square inch market. Why is it my top choice? Feels great on impact. Really solid feeling, or for a 100 square inch racket of 300 grams, it feels shockingly solid, like a solid stick of graphite. That's something that I really enjoy. String pattern was decently control oriented too. I wasn't getting a ton of balls launching on me, and stability is nearly unparalleled. I think the feel is better than the Ultra 100, and the general appeal is also definitely better because you've got pretty cool endorsements. Like, you can kind of pretend you're Nick Kyrgios, but also like Casper Ruud. Casper Ruud's an underrated player. He's like almost like a modern day David Ferrer, but he doesn't get half the respect he deserves. He's a good player. He's got a great personality, really distinct person who doesn't get pushed around by jerks like Kyrgios. And I love Kyrgios, but sometimes he's not a nice guy. Anyway, so Pure Strike 100. I do not like this racket whatsoever. Why? I don't see the point of it. Like, doesn't really offer more control than the Pure Arrow, if you ask me. Like, yeah, the beam's a little bit thinner, but the string bed is still completely uncontrollable because of how open it is. If it was like an 1820, that would be cool, that would be unique, but they'll never do that. It's also still really stiff, so you're not getting any better comfort from that than you are with the Pure Drive or the Pure Arrow. So, stupid. stupid C tier. Yeah, I think these Extreme MP and Pure Strike 100 are on the same level. Like, no offense to you if you use either one of those rackets, but consider demoing something else. Prostaff 100. This is actually a very cool racket. So, really hard to get. I haven't tried it. I don't like to put rackets on my tier list that I haven't tried, but I just don't see myself getting my hands on a Prostaff 100. It's really cool. It's like a modern adaptation of that old 6195 with a slightly rounded box beam and I can't remember what these are called. Power something. Those little lumps at 3 and 9. They don't do anything, but you can pretend they do, and they're a classic feature in older Wilson molds. This is a cool racket. Really glad they make it. Wish it was a little bit easier to find, but A tier, because respect for Wilson for putting that out. Next up, Phantom 100X. I love the Phantom line. Really cool, super thin beam, tons of flex. Not good for me, not good for my game at all, but I love that they exist. I love the super open pattern compared with like a really high twist weight and a really flexy beam. It's kind of like the Clash for advanced players, to be honest. Really comfortable, fun to hit with, like one of the most unique hitting experiences you are going to find in tennis today. Love it. So for that, let's go. I don't think it's quite A tier because I don't think it's like that viable of an option for a lot of players, but let's go B tier, like respectable B tier. I want it to be higher, so I'll make it higher. A. No, B. Okay, Prince Vortex 310. Haven't tried this one either, but the specs are crazy. It's got a 14 by 18 string pattern and the pointiest throat ever. This is a crazy racket. I wish there was more crazy rackets. I'm glad that Prince is super innovative. They've got that insane twist power thing as well. Hope to try that one day. But just because of the unique specs, like you gotta respect that A tier, because like Bablot's not doing that fun experimentation. Head's not doing that fun. Well, Head has, like the MXG. That was a failure. But I respect the risk. You have to respect the risk, because if everyone's just making the same pure drive knockoffs that they've been making for the past 10 years, no one is going to make a better pure drive than Bablot, except maybe Yonex with the Ezone 100. Next up, we've got one of my favorites, the Gravity Pro. 315 grams. This thing packs a punch. Ton of pro player endorsements, which is really cool, but they're not just endorsements. A lot of players seem to actually be using the Gravity mold or insert pro stock code below. Rublev switched from a 6195. Zverev is just a good racket all around. Nice and comfortable, great for a wide variety of players. Racket of choice by my good friend AC Tennis, which gives it some credibility as well, so S tier. I feel like this S tier is a bit crowded, but whatever. Next up, Gravity MP. I really like this one as well. I don't think it's quite as good as the Gravity Pro, but it's a great offering. 16 by 20 string pattern. Love that. Extremely wide head, so it gives it kind of a uniquely large spin window, something I also really appreciate. I think that's got to be an A tier as well. Also, I love the paint job on the Gravities, and that's something that you have to respect. Like, you don't want to end up with something ugly. Like, I think the strikes are also really ugly. The Extreme is ugly. I use an Extreme, and I think they're ugly, and that's another reason why those two are down in C tier. Anyway, so I know I've missed a lot of 100 square inch rackets. I'm waiting to try the Speed still, but comment down below which rackets you want to see on part 2 of the 100 square inch tier list if you want to see a part 2. In the meantime, check out the 98 square inch racket tier list right here.